guys pray for me real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Amen. So, growing up, I grew up in the church, and my knowledge of God was basically that there's a heaven and a hell, and if you believe that Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead, you're going to go to heaven. So I thought, well, I don't want to go to hell. So yes, I accepted Jesus into my heart at a really young age. In high school, I kind of got involved with the wrong crowd. A lot of underage drinking and drugs, and kind of the whole party scene was what I got into. And about my junior year in high school, I met a guy at a party that was in college, and we hung out one night, and he ended up kind of pressuring me into something that I didn't want to do. And at that point, coming out of it, actually I didn't tell anybody about it for years, because in my mind I thought that it was my fault, because I put myself in a really bad position. So in high school I really struggled a lot with self-hate and just a sense of guilt. So my senior year in high school, I just decided, okay, I'll give this church thing another try. But of course, being a teenage girl, I got distracted. I saw this guy at church, and my focus went from like this to, oh hey, who is that? So shortly after graduating high school, me and this guy started dating, and he was a lot older than me. And I would say that the relationship was somewhat unhealthy. And we argued a lot. We were kind of living a hypocritical life because we were going to church, but we weren't being pure. We also weren't really involved in community, so we were isolated a lot. It was just me and him all the time. So coming out of that relationship, I felt really alone because I had lost all my friends because I only hung out with him, and I felt kind of like I had no worth, and I was still struggling a lot with self-hate, just a lot of insecurity. And I would say the thing that I struggled with most, though, was that deep sense of guilt and shame, because I was raised, to respect myself, to wait till marriage, and I had heard some of the Bible. I knew it, but I was living completely opposite of that. So around the same time frame, one of my brothers started going to this church, and he did a discipleship school. He, out of nowhere, seemed like genuinely full of life and full of joy. So he mentioned to me, he was like, hey, you should come check out my life group. It's kind of like a Bible study. And I thought, oh, sounds kind of boring. So I said, no, I'm good. But he was so persistent. He kept bringing it up. And he was like, no, you should really come. I feel like you get something out of it. So I finally said, okay, if you stop talking about it, I'll go. Okay. So I went. But what I observed was that what I noticed in my brother, I noticed in these people too. They had a lot of joy, and they seemed like they really loved and cared for each other. And even though I had this wall up, they were still so loving towards me and tried to include me and get to know me. So I thought, okay, I'll come back. So I think it was the third or fourth time that I went, and after the discussion, we broke off into guys and girls. They said, okay, we're gonna go around and say what we need prayer for, and we're going to pray for each other. So when it got to my turn to pray, I didn't understand it then, but I know now that the Holy Spirit showed up, and I had never really experienced the Holy Spirit before like this. So I just began crying in front of these people that I didn't know, and these women just got around me, laid their hands on me, began to pray for me. And this prayer was really different than I'd been prayed for before, because they were praying into my situation as if they knew what was going on in my head and in my heart. And so I remember just going home, and it sounds funny, but for the first time I actually opened up the Bible for myself and started reading it. And there was this specific story that stood out to me. It was a story about the adulterous woman that's about to get stoned. And I had heard this story a few times growing up, but this time when I read it, it was so different. Because I remember reading through it and thinking okay, this woman in this story is me. And at that point, when I saw how Jesus was, he didn't say okay, you got to clean your act up, you got to get right, and then I'll save you and forgive you. No, he forgave her right then and there, and he saved her. She didn't have to do anything to earn it. And so I realized for the first time that I was I don't have to earn his love and his grace and his forgiveness. It's not about what you do or don't do. it's about where your heart's at. And he wanted, and I just realized that, okay, he just wants to have a relationship with me. I'm still on this journey. It's a process. It's a lifelong process, but because he has so much more for us. But I know now, though, because of my relationship with Jesus, that I'm no longer tormented by guilt and shame. And because of my relationship with him, I no longer hate myself anymore. And now I know no matter what I do, that he's always going to love me, even when I fall and make mistakes.